Recognizing your growth is fuel for your future. It's the wind beneath your wings, the spring in your step. When you can see how far you've come, it gives you the courage to go even further. Let's dive into the first sign. You're asking better questions. You see, the quality of your life is determined by the quality of your questions. When I was a young man, I used to ask, why me? Why do I have to work so hard? Why can't I catch a break? But those questions led me nowhere. They were like a rocking chair, lots of motion, but no progress. But then something changed. I started asking, how can I improve? How can I contribute more? How can I make a difference? And let me tell you, that shift in questioning changed everything. When you start asking better questions, you're opening doors you didn't even know existed. You're challenging your assumptions, pushing your boundaries. It's like you've been walking around with a flashlight, and suddenly you've turned on a spotlight. Let me give you an example. I had a friend, let's call him Tom. Tom was always worrying about his job. Why does my boss hate me? Why can't I get a promotion? But then, one day, he changed his questions. He started asking, how can I add more value to my company? How can I improve my skills? And you know what happened? Within 6 months, he got that promotion he'd been dreaming of. That's the power of asking better questions. It's not just about the answers you get, it's about the person you become in the process of seeking those answers. Now, let's move on to the second sign. You're uncomfortable more often. Now, I know what you're thinking, Jim, how can being uncomfortable be a sign of growth? Well, let me tell you something. Comfort is the enemy of progress. If you're always comfortable, you're not growing. It's as simple as that. You see, growth happens at the edge of your comfort zone. It's in that space where you're a little nervous, a little unsure, but you push forward anyway. That's where the magic happens. Think about it like this. When you go to the gym, you don't get stronger by lifting weights that are easy for you. No, you get stronger by lifting weights that challenge you, that make your muscles strain and burn. It's the same with personal growth. I remember when I first started speaking in public, my knees would shake, my palms would sweat, and my voice would quiver. It was uncomfortable, to say the least. But you know what? I kept at it. I embraced that discomfort because I knew it was a sign that I was stretching myself, that I was growing. And here's the beautiful thing. What once made you uncomfortable becomes your new normal. That's how you know you're growing. The challenges that used to intimidate you now excite you. I had a student once, Sarah. She was terrified of public speaking. The mere thought of standing in front of a group made her sick to her stomach. But she decided to face that fear head on. She joined a local Toastmasters club, and every meeting was a struggle. But she kept showing up, kept putting herself in that uncomfortable position. Fast forward a year, and Sarah was not only comfortable speaking in front of groups, she was actually enjoying it. She had turned her biggest fear into one of her greatest strengths. That's the power of embracing discomfort. So if you find yourself in situations that make you a little uneasy, a little nervous, celebrate it. It means you're pushing your boundaries. It means you're growing. Now let's talk about the third sign. Your circle of influence is changing. You've heard me say it before, and I'll say it again. You are the average of the 5 people you spend the most time with. Your circle of influence shapes your thoughts, your beliefs, your ambitions. So when that circle starts to change, it's a clear sign that you're growing. Now this change can happen in 2 ways. First, you might find yourself naturally gravitating towards people who inspire you, who challenge you to be better. People who are where you want to be. That's a beautiful thing. It means you're raising your standards. But there's another side to this coin. You might also find that some relationships in your life are starting to fade. People who used to be a big part of your life might not fit into your new path. And that's okay. It's a natural part of growth. I remember when I first started my journey of personal development, some of my old friends didn't understand. They'd say, Jim, why are you reading all those books? Why are you going to all those seminars? They were comfortable with the old me, and my growth made them uncomfortable. But at the same time, I was meeting new people who shared my passion for growth. People who would discuss ideas, who would challenge my thinking, and slowly but surely my circle of influence changed. Now, I'm not saying you should cut people out of your life, not at all. But you should be intentional about who you spend your time with. Jim Rohn, that's me, didn't become who I am by accident. I deliberately sought out mentors and peers who would push me to grow. I had a mayor once, let's call him Mike. Mike was ambitious, but he was surrounded by people who were content with mediocrity. They'd spend their weekends partying while Mike wanted to build a business. It was a constant struggle for him. But then Mike made a decision. He started attending networking events, joining mastermind groups. He sought out successful entrepreneurs and asked for their advice. And you know what happened? His whole world changed. His new circle of influence opened doors he never knew existed. They supported his dreams, connected him with opportunities, and pushed him to be his best self. Within 2 years, Mike had started a successful business. And the interesting thing was, some of his old friends saw his success and were inspired to make changes in their own lives. Mike's growth had a ripple effect. So take a look at your circle of influence. Are you surrounded by people who inspire you? Who challenge you? Who support your dreams? If not, it might be time to expand your circle. Now let's move on to the fourth sign. You're more aware of your shortcomings. Now I can almost hear you thinking, Jim, how can being more aware of my flaws be a good thing? Well, let me tell you, self-awareness is the foundation of all growth. You can't fix what you don't acknowledge. You see, as you grow, as you learn, you start to see yourself more clearly. It's like cleaning a mirror that's been foggy for years. Suddenly you can see all the spots and smudges. And yes, at first that can be uncomfortable. But it's also incredibly empowering. Because once you're aware of your shortcomings, you can start working on them. You can turn your weaknesses into strengths. It's like having a map of yourself. You know where you are, and you know where you need to go. I remember when I first started in business, I thought I knew it all. I was young, ambitious, and frankly a bit arrogant. But as I grew, as I learned from my mentors and my experiences, I started to see all the areas where I needed to improve. I realized I wasn't as good at managing people as I thought. I saw that my communication skills needed work. And you know what? That awareness was the first step towards improvement. I had a client once, let's call her Lisa. Lisa was a talented artist, but she struggled to make a living from her art. When we first started working together, she blamed everything and everyone for her lack of success. The galleries were biased, the market was oversaturated, people just didn't appreciate good art. But as Lisa grew, as she learned, she started to see things differently. She realized that while her artistic skills were strong, her business skills were lacking. She didn't know how to market herself, how to price her work, how to network in the art world. And you know what Lisa did with that awareness? She embraced it. She took business classes. She learned about marketing. She practiced her networking skills, and slowly but surely her career started to take off. That's the power of self-awareness. It's not about beating yourself up over your flaws. It's about seeing yourself clearly so you can become the best version of yourself. So if you find yourself becoming more aware of your shortcomings, celebrate it. It means you're growing. It means you're seeing yourself more clearly. And that clarity is the first step towards positive change. Now let's talk about the fifth sign. You're taking more calculated risks. Risk-taking is a crucial part of growth, but I'm not talking about reckless, impulsive decisions here. I'm talking about calculated risks. The kind of risks that make your palms sweat a little, but you take them anyway because you've done your homework and you believe in the potential reward. You see, as you grow, your ability to assess risks improves. You start to see opportunities where others see obstacles. You develop the courage to step out of your comfort zone, but you do it smartly. I remember when I first started my business, every decision felt like a huge risk. Should I invest in this inventory? Should I hire this person? Should I expand to this new market? It was overwhelming. But as I grew, as I gained experience and knowledge, I got better at assessing these risks. I learned to gather information, to weigh the pros and cons, trust my instincts. And you know what? The risks I took became smarter, more calculated, and ultimately more successful. I had a student once, let's call him David. David had a stable job in a big corporation. It paid well, but he wasn't fulfilled. He had a dream of starting his own business, but the thought of leaving his secure job terrified him. For years, David stayed in his comfort zone, but as he grew, as he learned, he started to see things differently. He began to understand that while staying in his job felt safe, it was actually a bigger risk in the long run. He was risking his happiness, his potential, his dreams. So David started taking calculated risks. He didn't quit his job immediately. Instead, he started his business on the side. He invested time and money wisely, learning as he went. He built up his skills, his network, his customer base. And when the time was right, when he had reduced the risk as much as possible, David took the leap. He left his job to focus on his business full time. Was it still scary? Absolutely. But it was a calculated risk, one that David was prepared for. Today, David's business is thriving, but more importantly, David is fulfilled. He's living his purpose. And it all started with learning to take calculated risks. So if you find yourself taking more calculated risks, if you're stepping out of your comfort zone in smart, strategic ways, celebrate it. It's a clear sign that you're growing. Now, let's move on to the sixth and final sign. You're more patient with the process. This might seem counterintuitive. After all, when we think of growth, we often think of speed, of quick results. But true sustainable growth takes time. And one of the clearest signs that you're growing is when you start to understand and appreciate that. You see, when we start on our personal development journey, we often want results overnight. We read a book and expect our life to change immediately. We attend a seminar and think we'll wake up the next day as a completely different person. But that's not how real growth works. Real growth is a process. It's about consistent, persistent effort over time. It's about planting seeds today that will bear fruit months or even years from now. As you grow, you start to understand this. You become more patient with yourself and with the process. You learn to celebrate small wins along the way, knowing that they're all part of the bigger picture. I remember when I first started my speaking career, I wanted to be Tony Robbins overnight. I'd get frustrated when I didn't see immediate results, when my audiences weren't immediately transformed by my words. But as I grew, I learned to appreciate the process. I understood that every speech, every interaction was a chance to learn and improve. I became patient with my own growth, and you know what? That patience actually accelerated my progress. I had a client once. Let's call her Rachel. Rachel was ambitious and hardworking, but she was also impatient. She started a new project with enthusiasm, but if she didn't see results quickly, she'd get discouraged and give up. We worked together on developing patience, on understanding the process of growth. It wasn't easy for Rachel. She had to fight against her natural inclination for instant gratification. But slowly, Rachel started to change. She learned to set long-term goals and to appreciate the small steps she was taking towards them. She developed the discipline to stick with things even when she wasn't seeing immediate results. And you know what happened? Rachel started achieving things she never thought possible. She built a successful business, not overnight, but through consistent effort over time. She improved her relationships by giving them time to grow and develop. Rachel's growing patience didn't just help her achieve her goals, it also brought her peace. She was no longer constantly frustrated by the gap between where she was and where she wanted to be. Instead, she learned to enjoy the journey. So if you find yourself becoming more patient, if you're less frustrated by slow progress and more appreciative of the process, celebrate it. It's a clear sign that you're growing. Now, let's take a step back and look at these 6 signs together. You're asking better questions. You're uncomfortable more often. Your circle of influence is changing. You're more aware of your shortcomings. You're taking more calculated risks. You're more patient with the process. These signs might not be flashy. They might not be immediately obvious to others, but they are powerful indicators of real sustainable growth. You see, personal development isn't about dramatic transformations. It's not about waking up one day as a completely different person. It's about small, consistent changes that add up over time. It's about gradually expanding your comfort zone step by step. It's about slowly but surely raising your standards, both for yourself and for the people you surround yourself with. It's about developing the self-awareness to see your flaws not as permanent limitations, but as areas for improvement. It's about building the courage to take smart risks, to bet on yourself. And perhaps most importantly, it's about developing the patience and perseverance to stick with the process even when progress feels slow. Now, you might be sitting there thinking, Jim, this all sounds great, but how do I actually apply this to my life? Well, I'm glad you asked. Let me give you some practical steps you can take to nurture these signs of growth in your own life. First, let's talk about asking better questions. This is a skill you can develop with practice. Start by being more mindful of the questions you ask yourself throughout the day. When you face a challenge, instead of asking, why is this happening to me, try asking, what can I learn from this? Instead of, why can't I do this? Ask, how can I improve my skills to make this possible? Make it a habit to challenge your assumptions. When you find yourself thinking something is impossible, ask, what if it were possible? What would that look like? These kinds of questions open up new possibilities and push you to think in new ways. Now, about being uncomfortable more often. This one requires courage, but it's so worth it. Make a commitment to do one thing that scares you every day. It doesn't have to be big. Maybe it's speaking up in a meeting, trying a new hobby, or striking up a conversation with a stranger. The key is to gradually expand your comfort zone. And remember, the goal isn't to eliminate discomfort, it's to get comfortable with being uncomfortable. Embrace that feeling of nervousness as a sign that you're growing. When it comes to changing your circle of influence, be intentional about the people you spend time with. Seek out mentors and peers who inspire you, who challenge you to be better. This might mean joining professional organizations, attending networking events, or even just reaching out to people you admire for coffee. At the same time, be mindful of relationships that might be holding you back. You don't necessarily need to cut people out of your life, but you might need to limit your time with those who don't support your growth. Now, developing self-awareness is a lifelong journey, but there are things you can do to speed up the process. Start a journal. Reflect on your day, your reactions, your decisions. Ask for feedback from people you trust. Take personality assessments. The more you understand yourself, the more effectively you can grow. When it comes to taking calculated risks, start small. Build your risk-taking muscle gradually. Before you take a risk, do your homework. Gather information, consider the potential outcomes, have a plan B. Remember, the goal is not to eliminate risk, but to make smart, informed decisions. And finally, cultivating patience. This might be the hardest one for many of us, but it's so crucial. Start by setting long-term goals and then break them down into smaller, manageable steps. Celebrate your progress along the way, no matter how small it might seem. Practice mindfulness. Learn to be present in the moment instead of always focusing on the end goal. And remember, every master was once a beginner. Give yourself permission to be a beginner, to make mistakes, to learn and grow at your own pace. Remember, growth is not a destination. It's a journey, a lifelong journey of becoming. And it starts with recognizing these signs, embracing them, and consciously choosing to grow every single day. So, as you leave here today, I want you to make a commitment to yourself, a commitment to growth, a commitment to becoming the best version of yourself. Because when you commit to your own growth, you're not just changing your life, you're changing the world. Thank you for your time and attention today. Now go out there and grow. The world is waiting for the best version of you. Make it happen.